Hello, and welcome to Prologue for Christin Eve Cato's Sancocho, directed by Rebecca Martínez. My name is Fiona Kyle, and I'm the Literary Manager and Artistic Associate here at Geva. We are so excited to welcome both Martínez and Cato back to Rochester. Martínez directed Somewhere Over the Border by Brian Quijada in 2022, and a few months later, Cato joined us as dramaturg for Somewhere by Matthew Lopez. They both have worked together frequently throughout their careers, so it feels like a reunion on many fronts at Geva. Christin Eve Cato started developing Sancocho in 2020 and had readings of its early script with Milagro, Borderlands Theater, and the Latinx Playwrights Circle. In 2022, Cato put on her dramaturgy hat to join us at Geva for Somewhere, where she helped the team explore the history of New York City from the lens of a Puerto Rican family about to be displaced by the building of Lincoln Center. While she was with us in Rochester, she told artistic director Elizabeth Williamson about the show she was developing that had just received a workshop in 2022 at the Playwrights Center, Sancocho. It went on that same year to have a production in Chicago at Visión Latino Theater Company, and then in 2023 at WP Theater, where it was presented by Latinx Playwrights Circle, WP Theater, and The Soul Project Off-Broadway, again directed by Rebecca Martínez. It was named runner-up for Best Production by Hola, and actress Zulema Guevara, who also joined us for Somewhere, won an Obie for Best Performance. Everyone at Geva loved working with Cato, so we were looking to find ways to bring her back to Rochester. When we finally had the chance to read Sancocho, we felt that it would really resonate with our community. This year, with our season focusing on themes of home, love, and family, Cato's Sancocho felt like a natural fit as it explores each of those with depth, tenderness, and an unflinching eye on the generational trauma between sisters Caridad and Renata. What makes Cato's play so poignant, though, is that it looks at trauma with a sense of humor. When one sister talks about the impact of colonization in Puerto Rican cooking, the other counters by saying that Vienna sausages, not an original food found on the island, make a particular dish much easier to cook. Cato's play feels like a recipe. Each character brings several ingredients, but only together do they make the meal. Now, let's talk more about that meal. As Hector Varela Rios writes in Sancochnando, Theological Anthropology, one Puerto Rican heavy soup is heuristic, which you can read more about on our big screen out in the lobby, Sancocho only has two ingredients that are fixed, meaning they're always in the recipe: water and salt. On the big screen, you can also find out much more about the different regional variations and the history of Sancocho. But I'd like to talk about some of the ingredients that aren't fixed, the ones that Caridad is putting into her stew pot. Those include some very standard ingredients that go into many soups and stews: onions, garlic, potatoes, carrots, bay leaves, and bouillon, all of which together already sound delicious. The base of Sancocho is called sofrito, which in Spanish means to lightly fry or to sauté or stir fry. Spanish colonists brought this with them in the late 1400s to the Caribbean. According to the food website The Spruce, sofrito can be considered a method of cooking, although it also reads like a recipe. Vegetables, herbs, and spices are blended together by chopping or being put into a food processor or blender. If you're into cooking, you may be familiar with the French mirepoix, Italian battuto, or Portuguese refogado, all similar bases to sofrito. Sofrito includes onions, garlics, peppers, and/or culantro or cilantro. Culantro is also known in Spanish as recao. In the play, Caridad marinates some of her ingredients in sofrito to give it deeper flavor. One of the ingredients in Caridad's Sancocho is specific: rabitos, or oxtails. When we were initially meeting with Chef La Flaca, they talked about how their Sancocho recipe differed. Oxtails are delicious, but on the more expensive side. So for an average Sancocho, they use beef stew meat and a beef neck bone. But Chef Madeline Castillo noted that oxtails give it something extra. Early in the play, we find out that Caridad is making Sancocho for Sunday dinner, and that others will be joining them to enjoy the meal. We get the sense quickly that this is a dish she's made many times, but today's sancocho is different. It's special. Geva's past production history includes slow food, and there seems to be a real love in Rochester for shows about food. And whether you're in Rochester or not, many people love cooking shows on television as a way to learn more or even just to relax. Which leads me to this seemingly unrelated question. Have you ever heard of ASMR videos? Autonomous Sensory Meridian Response, ASMR, is defined as a tingling sensation, usually beginning at the top of the head and moving down to the upper spine. And that is typically triggered by the sound of something. Some people will watch and, more importantly, listen to videos of people doing tasks that elicit a soothing response. There are many ASMR videos of people chopping or cooking food. Some people find the repetitive sound of a knife on a cutting board or the sizzle of something frying in a pan, for example, relaxing. In Sancocho, it goes a little deeper than ASMR. It's cooking as diegesis. Diegetic sound is a sound in a television show or film that is defined as emanating from or being indigenous to the world. For instance, if you're watching the TV show The Bear, both audience and characters are hearing the sounds made in the kitchen, such as the blender, the knives, the sink running. Audience and characters have the same aural experience. For us in theater, we use sound design in these moments to bring our audience members into the world. But it's a little different in our production. We do have support from the amazing Julian Mesri's sound design to remind us that we're in a kitchen, and there's definitely some theater magic you'll hear today from his work, but you'll also hear and see the work from our culinary consultants, Madeline Castillo and Wilson Castillo of Chef La Flaca. They came in to work with a company of actors and creative team to help the real-world magic of cooking. Of course, safety first. They taught the actors how to wield their knives and protect themselves, same as we all learn how to do when we're cooking at home, but also to ensure that when they're in performance and they have more adrenaline, that they're still protecting their fingers. But also, Chef La Flaca helped with the way you would really cook sancocho in real time. What are the order of ingredients going into the pot? How would someone like Caridad, who has been cooking since she was young and has made sancocho many times, handle her ingredients? How would she approach peeling or teaching someone to peel a plantain? We all know that we eat with our eyes first. And what are we doing in a theater? We're watching. With food, we're smelling before we're tasting, and then all of our senses combine when we eat. In performance, it's also the aural experience. The diegetic sounds of cooking are a character in sancocho. The sound tells us that the meat is sizzling or stewing, so our brains start to expect the smell. Our eyes generate the visual cues. Sancocho is about theater magic utilizing the real magic of our brains to help tell the story of these two sisters bridging their divides and seeking healing through food. Sancocho is considered by many to be a comfort meal, one that's equally great for a celebration or just celebrating a hard week being over. Cato's deliberate in choosing sancocho. She settled on a recipe that brings people together, which is what sisters Caridad and Renata have struggled to do. The sisters are over a decade apart, with Caridad being almost more like a mother to Renata than a sister. As such, their perspectives on life and their parents are different. Renata, being younger, was afforded certain privileges that Caridad didn't receive. This may ultimately sound familiar to your own family or others you've known. Something Renata, who is pregnant with her first child, mentions is that your children can inherit your trauma. This is in reference to a number of studies, which you can find in journals like Scientific American, about how the effects of trauma may be passed down through generations via epigenetics. That means that traumatic events that have impacted a parent may be passed down genetically. This isn't like a mutation that changes the genetic code, which could lead to disease, but how events may change the way DNA is expressed. These responses to an environment create tiny chemical tags that may be passed down. Think of it like a family resemblance. Your daughter may have her father's nose, but she may also have in her DNA a chemical tag from him that was created by being in an unsafe environment, such as serving in war. As you watch Sancocho, consider the ways in which the sisters are impacted by what their parents experienced, even before they were born, or what Renata's unborn child may inherit. Sancocho has an incredible team of designers, including costume designer Harry Nadal and lighting designer Carolina Ortiz Herrera. I want to talk a little bit about what our scenic designer, Raul Abrego, has brought to the fielding stage. While our actors are not truly cooking, his scenic design takes us to a seemingly fully functional New York City apartment. But I want to draw your eye to one aspect of the scenic design, Caridad's ofrenda. Ofrenda translates to offering, and that is an altar set up in a person's home to honor their ancestors. On the first day of rehearsal upstairs, it's common for our designers to talk the staff and the actors through their designs. As Abrego was walking through his design, Cindy Peralta, who plays Caridad, was able to talk a little bit more about the ofrenda that was designed. She mentioned that in an ideal world, it would be near a water source, so that the spirits can quench their thirst, and have a white cloth, which symbolizes the purity of a loved one's soul. It was scenography in action. Abrego designed a beautiful template, and Peralta shared her personal experience to make it come fully alive on stage. See if you can catch how Abrego took those ideas from Peralta on the stage in the fielding. I'd like to leave you with a few sections from the beginning of Associate Professor Nelly Rosario's Feasting on Sancocho Before Night Falls, a meditation. On the one-year anniversary of his 1982 Nobel Prize in Literature, Gabriel Garcia Marquez had a single obsession: to celebrate with a Sancocho stew at the edge of a river in his native Colombian native village. One can't help but ask, why so humble a meal for so world-class an achievement? Solitude and Sancocho are polar opposites. Who better to crave Sancocho than the author of 100 Years of Solitude? This meat and vegetable stew, embodiment of abundance, celebration, and communion, is an antidote to the solitude. The preparation and sharing of Sancocho is our attempt at utopia in the boiling cauldron of a war-torn world. A pot of Sancocho functions as a weapon of mass attraction. A pot of Sancocho serves up the reverse of violence, of solitude, and all other divisive forces. The history of Sancocho is all about raising the least to the most, the ordinary to the extraordinary. Call us alchemists. The African diaspora always has done what it could with what it's had, transmuting base metals into gold. We've turned table scraps into feasts, curd into cheese, sour grapes into wine, lemons into lemonade. It's hard work, and we season our efforts well. I hope that resonates with you when you join us in the fielding for Sancocho. Thank you for joining me for Prologue, and I know that you'll enjoy the show.